Hey, Stargazers. This quick video is because it just dawned on me there is something I overlooked, and I don't know how forgot about this. So, if you watched part two of the Astrology Investigate Sean Coombs videos, where we talked about the rectification of the chart and how we justified it, um, you also know that there was a heavy, really prominent 11th house emphasis in the rectified chart, in his solar return, in the transits, at the time that the Pisces eclipse kicked off this FBI raid of his homes. And believe me, when the FBI shows up at your house with trucks full of men with guns, they're looking for some big stuff. This is not about adult sex parties or, hanging out with barely legal kids, which is a problem in and of itself. No. We're looking for something huge. That's the first tip off. This is much bigger than that. So it dawned on me, it just occurred to me because I forgot, right? So back in, and I found the date for it, was April 2020, it was around Easter, April 2020. There was a video that Diddy put out as part of a fundraiser support, whatever, with all of his children and introducing themselves. And in this parade of children in the video, one of them is this little random white girl, right? Okay. And then, of course, Diddy and this girl whose name is Ava Baroni, I believe. The link to the video will be in the description box. Thank God you YouTubers archive this stuff. So somebody captured it from Instagram Live and saved it on YouTube. Yay, team. He's telling the world, he's announcing that he's adopted this little white girl. And, her family was homeless. She was on the streets or whatever. And he took her in, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, go ahead, Ava, tell her. So she's on her, saying the same thing, Papa Coombs, took me in because I was on the street, blah, blah, blah. And she must have been like 9, 10, 11 at the time. She looks like she might have been 10 or 11, maybe 11. And it was just weird, right? Because it's like, wait, what? Right? So it's just odd. And so the important thing about this is, after this, like there's only like a couple of videos later, like not long after that, where she was in full makeup. She looked like a grown woman. She's not a grown woman, but she looks like makeup will do amazing things. Looks like a grown woman and a very attractive one at that, which does not bode well for her safety, right? Because attractive adolescent girls who look like grown women in makeup are targets. And some of you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? So after that, she sort of disappeared off the scene, disappeared into the ethers. Nobody's heard or seen anything about her or from her since. Just so we don't know where she is or what she's doing or what's happened to her. Now, the reason this is important is because one of the things that's kind of a quiet conversation happening right now in the midst of this circus around Diddy and all the salacious gossip about his sex parties and celebrities, and I suspect this is why the feds are involved, is that one, he never actually legally adopted her. We don't know what that was about. So there was never actually a legal adoption, and we don't know what that was about. But it's not, apparently what we're learning is it's not unusual for him to take full custody or guardianship of youngsters for a couple of days or a short period of time with parents' permission. Apparently it's some weird thing in the music industry. Man, that industry is dirtier than I thought it was. Because there's a whole thing about Rihanna being shipped off with not Jay-Z. Jay-Z? Yeah, Jay-Z. Like for a 3 a.m. meeting at his hotel, and then being flown the next day to New York to meet other executives, and he like had her for a couple of days and then sent her back, and the father shows up and picks up a $500,000 check for his giving permission for Jay-Z to basically meet this girl at 3 o'clock in the morning in a hotel for an audition. And then flying her almost immediately to another country where, without any parental supervision at all, it was just Rihanna and Jay-Z and his team. And then flying her back and then handing the father a check, a huge check. So there's a whole lot of hinky, ugly stuff apparently in this music industry that they know about that we didn't before. Anyway, so Ava, the quiet conversation is one, Ava was never legally adopted. So what was that about? And where is she? And why have we not seen or heard from her since? And the other is that there is quiet word on the street that the feds have found a couple of videos in Diddy's possession with Ava in them. And you know as well as I do that at this point, if you're on a video in Diddy's home that Diddy's taken of you, it's not Nickelodeon Disney videos. Like this is not good. If that is true, this is not good. So there's a lot of questions about his actual relationship with this girl because it's not unknown or undone or what unprecedented for some parents to be such dirtbags that they will literally sell their kids off, for the right amount of money, temporarily. They'll rent their kids out. Ugh. Okay, so I went back and looked at the transits, eclipses, anything that would make some kind of sense around this in Diddy's life in 2020. Well, I don't know because we don't know what the actual situation was with Ava, but here's what I do know, right? So at the time she shows up on video making this announcement she's adopted, she would have been there a couple of days or a couple of weeks. This wouldn't have been like, here today on video tomorrow. Like this, she would have been installed long enough for making this ridiculous video to even be a possible action as opposed to just a random idea. Now, we know that this video showed up on Instagram Live around Easter, which would be April 12th, I think, that year. So I figure she was there a couple of weeks, right? So the actual taking her in, as it were, or taking her off her parents' hands would have happened earlier than that. So we're looking at March, right? So what was going on in his chart around March? Well, my friends, here's what we had going on. Saturn was at the 29th degree on his Mars, that 29-degree Mars of his in Capricorn in March. At the same time, following very closely behind it, Mars was traveling through Capricorn and hit the 29th degree at the end of March. So we've got a lot of that Mars in Capricorn in his chart being activated heavy with both Mars and Saturn. Saturn transiting anywhere is it's just complicated, right? That you don't, unless you want something to be a permanent fixture or issue in your life, you don't typically want to get Saturn involved because Saturn is long term. Could be good, could be bad. We don't know. It depends on what you were doing with a Saturn transit, but Saturn will definitely it's not a nail in the coffin, but it's certainly obligations and consequences. Mars going down and conjuncting your natal Mars, as it didn't hit for him at the end of March, also indicates lots of impulsive action or an explosive. Now, we already know it's got an explosive temper, but lots of impulsive action, lots of Mars, testosterone-fueled behavior, power, domination, and control. Remember, dominates his chart. So this Mars transit would have hit his Mars and triggered his Mars behavior after Saturn had already crossed that Mars. Now, at this time, when Mars crosses his natal Mars, Saturn had hit 0 Aquarius. So Saturn had just started to move towards that 4th house cusp. So there would definitely been some friction or challenges there, especially if this is when he brought her into the home for who knows what reason. I won't make those accusations because they're ugly, and I literally forgot all about it because I didn't want to think about the possibility that that's what was going on. All right. Now, also too, Venus was down in, that's Taurus. Venus is in Taurus. Not really looking at that. So Mars and Jupiter are the ones we're watching, and Saturn. Oh, Jupiter, that's when I forgot, sorry. Jupiter at this time also was at 24. So Jupiter was approaching his Mars. Not quite there yet, but getting there. So he's got this heavy emphasis around that Mars retrograde in Capricorn in his chart. In mid to late March, would have been a couple weeks before this video came out, which would be about the time one would assume that she entered the household, unless she showed up earlier and had been there a few months before this video came out. So I'm curious, maybe you know better than I do, what was going on in his life in March of 2020 before this Easter video with Ava came out. Now, went through the year, going, like an auctioneer. Hey, hey. So I'm looking for dates, important trigger dates, right? What else happened that year? Well, my friends, so Saturn is bouncing all over that Mars, back and forth. But here's the thing, Jupiter hits that Mars in mid-December. So about a week before Christmas, Jupiter hit that Mars at 29 Capricorn and was just about to enter Aquarius. Saturn at the same time was back at 29 degrees Capricorn all through the beginning of the month. And within 2 or 3 days of Jupiter changing signs, moving from 29 Capricorn to 0 Aquarius, Saturn was right behind it, or right ahead of it, right ahead of it. Also moving from 29 Capricorn to 0 Aquarius. So this week, right, the 16th to the 21st, give or take a few days on either side of that week, was a very significant week for him that involved Mars activity. And because this video came out in April around Easter, I'm really wondering if Ava is not part of this, what these transits are showing us. I don't know, we'll find out. So if the video came out around Easter, which would be the 12th, let's take a look at that real quick. All right, so Mars would have crossed his nadir around the 6th, because we don't have the exact day that the video came out. I know we do, it's the 20th. It's the 20th. Hang on, folks. April 20th, 2020 is when the video came out. All right. So on that day, the sun had just entered Capricorn. Mercury was in Aries. Venus was Gemini. Mars at 14, Aquarius. So we don't really, Uranus was at, Uranus. So on the 20th, when that video came out, Uranus was at 6 Taurus. Now remember, he's got Saturn at 4 Taurus. So it is and Saturn's got a nice orb there. It's only a couple degrees. It's still active, right? So it is entirely possible. Are there eclipses? No. So it's entirely possible that Uranus crossing his Saturn told on him, was telling tales. Because, Uranus's revelations, shocks, things that are completely unexpected, and this certainly was, right? And it reveals things. It's lightning strikes in the dark. It exposes everything momentarily, if you're looking, right? If you've got your eyes open and you're looking. Now, let me just check something real quick. All right, so that's too far out. April. There was an eclipse. There were eclipses in June where they activated in April. 21st, 9 Cancer. That's weird. 21st, 9 Cancer. That's not right. Oh, look at the wrong day. Jesus Christ. Old people time. All right, so there's one at 9 Cancer that month, and the other one is at 18 Sag. Hold that thought. Okay, so skip those months. We're actually going to go backwards a little bit. Now, there was an eclipse in January at 20 Cancer, January 2020, on January 10th. There was an eclipse at 20 Cancer that was activated, triggered, all right? Around the 17th of March. The 17th of March, right about the time all these other transits are hitting that, are approaching and closing in on that natal Mars of his. So, right. So the reason this particular eclipse and the activation is important is that 20 Cancer eclipse squares, you ready? Venus and Jupiter in Libra in his chart. Remember, he's got Venus and Jupiter at 21 and 22 Libra. That 20 degrees Cancer eclipse makes an exact square to, 1 degree, a tight square to those planets. And remember, chart ruler, chart ruler, chart ruler, if he is Libra rising, Venus is the chart ruler, which means that that Cancer eclipse was squaring his chart ruler in the 12th house of secrets. And activated down in March, which is when I think Ava may have come on the scene. Which led to this rando video of him announcing her as his adopted daughter in like a couple weeks later in April. And of course, shortly after that, according to these transits and dates, there would have been some issues with his temper, and other Mars ruled things in his chart. And that may be why we haven't seen or heard from Ava, because she literally wasn't there after the next month. So, interesting stuff. And again, if I haven't said before, the thing about it is the FBI is not going to show up at your door with armored tanks and with men with guns inside unless you're looking for something huge. And given the music industry, we're now learning propensity for using music contracts and, scouting talent as excuses to basically take, hostage, legal hostage, uh, guardianship of underage people, and taking advantage of them, sexually assaulting them, and all sorts of horrible things, and then passing them around like party favors to each other, right? Because this is all coming out now, and with Diddy's criminal ties, well, assumed criminal ties, and also with the power and ease and ability that he had to move all over the world, right? It's not unthinkable that what the feds are actually looking at is an international child sex trafficking ring. Okay, and Diddy is not the kingpin of it, but he's certainly a linchpin that is going to unravel the sweater of a whole lot of stuff that's been hiding this, and a lot of players involved. So I think Ava may be the thing that they're looking for, because the other thing, remember, there's videos, supposedly a couple of videos floating around with her in it, in Diddy's possession, and these would not be Disney World, Disney Channel videos if Diddy has them. And, just a whole lot of stuff. So let's keep an eye on that, and let's see what happens. And remember, the 11th house, other people's children, not your biological children, but children that other people have, right? That you're having a proper relationship with.